Hello all, today I'm going to be showing you how to overclock your NVIDIA graphics card. The graphics card I'm going to use in this video is a 9500 GT, but I'm sure this will work with any other NVIDIA graphics card. Alright, so there are two main tools that you want to use. The first one being RivaTuner 2.24c. Just Google RivaTuner, you'll find it. And EVGA Precision 1.9.6. In this video I'm going to use 1.9.5, but I'm sure it'll work with 1.9.6. For the interest of time, I've already downloaded and installed both of those, and go ahead and open up RivaTuner and EVGA Precision. And we're going to be using RivaTuner for the actual overclocking operation, and EVGA to monitor so we can actually see the results of what we're doing, because RivaTuner isn't the most honest program sometimes. Alright, without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so if open up RivaTuner, and if it gives you something, a dialog box about you have the wrong drivers, you don't. Make sure that your drivers are updated. I forget what the current NVIDIA drivers are, but they're like 247.57 or something, I don't know. Alright, once you have RivaTuner open, go to driver settings, and where it says customize, click this little triangle and go to system settings. A menu will open up, and the first thing you want to do is you want to go over to the fan tab, and here it says auto control. It probably will when you do it. You want to select direct control, and you want to take this slider. It probably will say around 33, I'm not sure. That's what it says for mine. Might say something different on yours. And you want to bring it all the way up to 100% fan speed, and click apply. Make sure you click apply whenever you do something. That's so your graphics card doesn't overheat or anything. And go back to the overclocking tab and make sure this enable driver level hardware overclocking, make sure that's enabled, because see all this stuff, you won't be able to do any of that if that isn't checked. When you check it, it may prompt you to restart your system. Go ahead, do it. You may have to do it a couple times. I'm not sure why. On my old rig, you didn't have to. I didn't have to, at least. But on my new rig, the one I'm currently using, I did have to. Whatever. And once you're done with that, make sure that this link clocks box right here, make sure that's checked. It'll keep your core clock and your shader clock, these two sliders, it'll keep them in sync so that they work better together. And make sure up here that it says Performance 3D, not Standard 2D or Low Power 3D. Make sure it's Performance 3D. Alright, so next what you want to do is you want to go right here to core clock and start increasing it. Let's go to around 600 and click apply, and go to EVGA, double click on the graphs. You'll have to expand it, but I've already expanded the window. Alright, so it shows that we're running at 600 core, 600 megahertz core, and 1550 megahertz shader. That's better than what we started with, 550 and 1400. Probably wouldn't. You don't want to stop here because, I mean, you could stop here, but you won't get much out of it. And then open up a graphics intensive application or game such as Fallout 3 or Oblivion or StarCraft 2 or Stalker Call of Pripyat or Metro 2033 or Unreal Tournament 2004, Diablo 2, and Need for Speed Underground. They're too old. They're probably not going to load your graphics card as much as you'd want them to, but any new game like Crysis even, or yeah, those are good ones to use. And what you want to look for when you're playing the game, you won't be really playing the game, you just move around the environment, fire off a few shots. If it's a driving game, skid your tires to make sure you're getting particle effects and really stressing your video card. What you want to look for are little dots on your screen, or just other strange things. They're called artifacts. I'll get more into it when we overclock memory, but for now, let's just keep sliding our core slider further to the right, and click apply. Go to EVGA, and we see that we're running at 650 core and 1650 shader, and keep going up higher until you get to a point where you start to see artifacts like white triangles, or some things being transparent where they're not supposed to be, like you can see through the corners of some buildings, or just little white dots that appear once in a while. And that point for my graphics card is at around 767 core and 1950 shader. You see there. And once you reach that limit, you want to go back just a little bit to make sure you don't hurt your graphics card over the long run or things like that, and click apply. Alright, and then run your benchmarking program like Fallout or Crysis or Oblivion, whatever. Now what you want to do is you want to come down here to the memory clock slider, and you want to start increasing this more slowly, like 10 or 15 megahertz each time. Excuse me. Because why you want to go slower with this slider is because go over to EVGA, double click it, is because your memory, it runs, I'm not sure why, but it's a lot more sensitive to increases in speed than the rest of your graphics card. And so the thing you want to watch out for more when you're overclocking your memory, when you're playing your games, are memory artifacts. They're like excuse me, the artifacts that you see when you're when we were overclocking, if you go too far with your core and shader clocks, but they're usually multicolored. And a way to see if your memory modules are overheating, which they probably won't, they'll probably start giving you artifacts before they do that, is if there are lots of white dots on your screen. I never got to that stage. My computer restarted itself before I got to that point. Alright, so just keep going up little by little, and once you get to a point where you don't see that many artifacts any longer, but where you're comfortable, when you get to your graphics card's limit, you'll know when you see it. For me, that's 484 megahertz memory, and you see how it says 484 megahertz in RivaTuner, but 486 in EVGA. That's why we use two programs to double check. EVGA is more accurate than RivaTuner. So we're actually running at 486 megahertz memory. And once you find your max for the memory speed, you want to bring it back just a little bit. I bring mine back to 475. That's the fastest speed that I know my graphics card isn't going to overheat, isn't going to do any funky, weird stuff. That's the fastest I'm running it at. That's the fastest I'm going to run it at comfortably. And so once you're done with that, play your program, play your graphics intensive game or whatever, and once you're happy with that, run not an overclocking program, sorry. If you want, you can run a benchmarking program like 3D Mark 06, and with your stock settings and with your new overclock settings, and see how much of a performance difference you got. I can overclock this graphics card quite aggressively, as you just saw. I put my core and shader clocks up about 33%, but my performance gains were about, in 3D Mark 06, were about 15 to 25%, depending on what aspects you look at. I do get a noticeable increase when I'm gaming, but this card comes clocked pretty slowly from the factory, and factory overclocked models like the 9600 GSO, any card that's the 240GS or GTS, any card that's factory overclocked, you probably won't be able to overclock it as far as I've overclocked my card, because it's already kind of overclocked from the factory. But that's, chances are the card's already pretty fast, and you might not even want to mess with it. So that's how to overclock your NVIDIA graphics card. If you want, post your rig and your computer specs and how much you overclocked and your performance gains in the comments section. Subscribe and rate. Thanks.